Good morning. Welcome to Top 3 Leadership, YouTube channel about all things leadership. And today I'm just going to talk about some of my experience and what the top 3 traits are for leaders today. And before I get into that, I really want to talk about what was the goal of this channel and why Manny, my partner, and I created this. We're both franchisees of Crestcom Leadership Development, which is a leadership development organization that really specializes in taking leaders or managers and turning them into leaders. And this is through a process over a year, but also a lot of our clients, we work with them for year after year after year. And you'll see this, I've been in the business for about 8 years where we've had managers go through and, just really make huge strides because they've gone from just being a manager in title to being a leader. And one of the things that we share often and that I really love, and I'll share a story about this as well, is we can lead from wherever we are. We do not need a title in order to be a leader. And early in my career, I really felt like the opposite. It's like, well, once I have a title, people will follow me, right? Because, if I'm president or vice president or director, whatever the title was, automatically people have to follow me, right? Well, not necessarily. And, I learned this, I don't know, I want to say the hard way, but, through trials and tribulations of managing people and, learning how to actually get the most out of people. And it's typically when they trust you, when they have a good relationship with you, they know that you have their back. And so it's really important as leaders that we understand the things that it takes to actually be a great leader. And it's not a title. So if you think a title is the thing that's going to make you a great leader, you're mistaken. Does it help? Sure, it does. I learned this, about 8 years ago. I left a job that I'd been at, and I was president, and I was a shareholder of the company. And I started my Crestcom business, and I went in and started helping other companies on developing their leaders. And I found that I really had to change my approach on how to get through to people because I didn't have that title. I didn't have the authority within their organization. And so I had to learn, how to get people to trust me, how I could help them, find out what their challenges are, what their biggest worry is on a daily basis. And, if I was able to help that or give them some tips, I was able to get that relationship going and that trust. And ultimately the trust is the biggest thing. And so often we see as leaders that we fail to build trust with our team. And so if you're struggling, ask yourself, do you have your team's trust? Because if you do, you're on that first step to being a great leader. So let's get into what I think are the top 3 things to be a great leader. Number 1 is courage. And what do I mean by courage? Because it doesn't mean I'm out there and I'm just leading the charge every single day, but it's the courage to have those difficult conversations, the courage to do the right thing. Let's say that, a lot of times you hear what happens is something happens and it's like, well, did I have the courage to step up and do the right thing in the face of adversity? And I think that is so important because if your team sees that you have the courage to step up and actually lead in those times, that is huge. That again is going to build that trust. That's going to build that relationship that, yeah, I know that the leader of our organization or my manager or whoever you are is going to have my back. And that is so important as leaders to really understand that. So courage, which it can include honesty, it can lead, or it can be humility, being humble. Are we confident, not cocky? Nobody likes an arrogant leader because it's really hard to work with them because they always think they're right. So are you confident, but also do you understand that maybe sometimes you are wrong, and that's okay. And so humility or being humble to me is huge. Another one is openness within that courage. Are you open to other ideas on your team? Are you open to being challenged in a positive manner? Are you actually cultivating that culture of hey, I don't have all the answers, and I want you guys to bring some ideas forward, because I think that's important. You know, as your organization scales, you want autonomy in those positions so that people feel inspired, they feel supported, and that's going to build, you know, just their trust in that organization. So, openness with your people, with your team, with your vendors, with your customers, because I think over the long term, that openness is just going to create better and better, stronger relationships. The second thing I want to talk about is integrity. Integrity is the thing. Do the right thing no matter what, if people know about it or not. And so, do you have a high moral compass? Do you say, okay, well, this isn't technically illegal, but is it unethical? That's the question you ask yourself. Is it, if it's not illegal, which is the first step, which is a very low barometer, really, when you think about it in a lot of ways. Okay, so is it legal, but is it ethical? And some examples, let's say a customer pays you double or pays you more than they owed you. Are you going to mention that? It's not illegal. They paid you, necessarily. But if they ask for that money back, and once they find it, you need to give it back. Or are you just going to do the right thing from the get-go and say, hey, Mr. Customer, I really appreciate you paying your bill timely, but I see a couple extra $1,000 on this. Can we make sure that we're aligned on what we were billing for? And that's going to build integrity. And a lot of times people don't do that. They take the money and they run. And, that's just not the way to build integrity on your team, because let's say your CFO or your controller or anybody on your accounting team says, hey, Mr. Boss Man, we got $2,000 extra dollars. How do you want to handle this? Well, if you keep it, what are they going to do when they see that? Or how are they going to treat you, as an employee? So integrity is doing the right thing no matter what. And that really goes with courage too, because if you think about it, integrity is like, hey, stepping up, doing the right thing no matter what. And it takes courage to do that. The third one, and I think is the one that is universal, no matter the industry, no matter how long you've been a leader, is the skill of communication. And I think this is one that leaders miss out on a lot, is communication. And going back to Crestcom and what we do with Crestcom is a lot of times is we're making sure that people understand what's being said, but also are we making sure that they heard us? And so the skill of communication is not only can I talk and can I, share my ideas, but can I listen? Can I actually listen and understand and hear what people are saying? Because the best leaders are amazing listeners. And sometimes as leaders, people don't need you to solve the problems. I see this a lot in the organizations that I lead, is that people come to me and they have a challenge and they want to know what to do. And so I sit there and listen, and a lot of times I'm just listening, and then they thank me because they just needed to get it off their chest, whatever it was. And often they know the thing to do or the right answer. They just need confirmation and kind of hear themselves talk through it. One of the things I do a lot of times is in these conversations is I ask is, do you need me to listen to help you, or do you just need me to listen and get it off your chest? And that will really help people build. Again, it builds the trust within your leadership. It gives them the courage to step up and the integrity to do the right thing. So that skill of communication is great because it really validates the first 2 points that I mentioned, courage and integrity. So going back to the skill of communication is, can I listen, but also do I have the ability to speak in a way that people hear me? And I think that's worth repeating because it's a very strong statement. Do I have the ability to speak in a way that people hear me? And then secondly, once they hear me, am I able to articulate that in a way that they feel like they want to move forward with what I suggested? because great leaders have an innate ability to motivate their team, encourage them, and really get them energized. And, I think that's critical as a leader, because as a leader, we can't be in all the places all at once, right? Or all the time. And if we think we are, we're not a leader. We're a micromanager. So as a leader, it's really important to understand, how do I articulate that? So that people want to follow me, and do they hear me? And a lot of times through this process, you have to empathize with your team. You have to repeat back to them, what you heard from them, and build that into what you want to do. And that's not manipulative at all, in my opinion. It's listening to your team, because your team is going to give you the things that need to be done. You just have to be willing to hear them, and then circle back and articulate them in a way that motivates them. So it's really important that you're getting that information from them, and then you're repeating that back to them in a way, with the knowledge that you have, with maybe some information that they don't have, and you're bringing it all together in a format that's really going to drive your organization forward. So if you think about it, number one, courage. Number two, integrity. And the third is the skill of communication. And that's not just talking, that's listening. So those are the three. One of the things that I want to add to this as leaders is, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. And what do I mean by that? If I show up prepared, to my job, physically, mentally, emotionally, that's critical, because if I'm not doing those things, let's say I show up and I'm exhausted, or I'm hungover, or I stayed up and I didn't get good rest, I'm cognitively, I'm just not going to be at my best. And so how I do that one thing is going to trickle into how I do everything. So if I come in to the office and I'm just wiped out for whatever reason, that is going to wear off on my team, and they're going to see that. But on the flip side, if I show up energized, ready to go, excited about work, caring about my people, that is going to trickle through to the whole workforce, because I'm leading by example. People watch you more than they listen to you. So it's really important to understand what that takes. And I'll share a story about me personally, of how I live this. In a past job, I was extremely stressed, leading to some health issues, and it really affected my ability to show up, and not just physically, but it actually affected my ability to show up on time. I've always been a guy, military dad, raised, if you're not 15 minutes early, you're late. And this job, for a long time, I loved it. But the last couple of years I was there, I found that I could not even get to work on time. And I lived 5 minutes from the office. And so I wasn't showing up in a position of leading well, because, I was extremely unmotivated. I was stressed from the environment that I was working in. I felt micromanaged. I felt like I was not empowered. And, that showed up in everything else I did. And it was really tough. And so I had to ask myself some tough questions. What do I need to do to change this? And ultimately, I tried a lot of things, but ultimately I had to leave that job in order to show up as a great leader for the people that I worked with. And so sometimes we have to do that. One of the things that I want to talk about too is your ability to lead comes from you being in a place to pour from a full cup. So again, if you're burning the candle at both ends, or if you're overworked, if you're stressed, if you have a bad diet, all these things are going to lead you to be in a position where you can't lead well. So let's take, for example, what I did when I left that job. I really focused on my health, because I'm like, I can't pour from empty cup. And that lead, for me, having the energy to show up, having the resolve to work through difficult situations, and lead by example. And I really focus on my health. Now I have a coach that puts in workouts for me, and we have goals or events that I'm working to, because that keeps me motivated on a daily basis, whether I want to or not. Because in order to be a great leader, I need to show up in a certain way every single day. That's what is expected of me from my team. And so if you're a leader, ask yourself, how are you showing up? Are you showing up with bags under your eyes, disheveled, unkept, unhealthy? Do you have vices? Is it alcohol? Is it drugs? Is it smoking? Is it eating? Or are you overusing social media, those sorts of things? So ask yourself, how are you showing up on a daily basis? Because it's critical. If we want to be a great leader, we have to be able to show up, do our job, and do it well. Not everybody, for me, I got into ultra running, which is, anything over a marathon. It doesn't have to be that, but do you have a steady workout program? Are you working out? Are you moving? Are you active at least 30 minutes a day? Because you find strength when you work out hard. You find strength that translates, because, if the workout's really hard and you don't want to do it, but you push through, the next time you have something at work that's really hard and you don't want to do it, you're going to be able to push through and persevere. And so it's really important that you're building that habit of showing up, working through things, whether they're hard or not. And again, that's going to translate to your team, because if your team sees that you have the ability to, dig in, not be stressed. A great way to do this when you have a stressful time is sit back, take some deep breaths, and actually ask some question about what is going on. How do I solve this problem? Those sorts of things. Rather than just, barking orders and just assuming that somebody screwed up. It's really taking the time to ask those questions. Another area with the ability to lead and how you do one thing, how you do everything, is, what are your boundaries? Not just for you, but for your team. You don't want to be in your team's personal business. You need to know enough to care. And if they are comfortable sharing, that's great. But you don't need to be like telling them how to live their lives, or this is how you should do it, those sorts of things. Now, if they ask for your opinion, that's different. But unsolicited advice is, often received very, very negatively. I can tell you from experience. It's like I've worked with people. It's like, oh, this is what you should do. Oh, if I was you, and that just leads to frustration, because they're not you and they don't have all the details. It could be like, hey, do you want some ideas on how to solve this? That's different. That's asking a question and really asking them for permission to, give that advice. So ask, power of questions. I always talk about the person who is willing to step back and ask questions is going to be a much better leader than the person that just gives unsolicited advice, because that means you heard them, you listened to them, and it goes back to that skill of communication that I mentioned in the beginning. The last thing with ability to lead and showing up is mentally, where are you? Are you in a great space? Are you in a space that you can actually lead and give good advice and give sound advice? So make sure that you're showing up. And that goes a lot of times to getting proper sleep, proper diet, proper exercise. All those things lead into you showing up on a daily basis in a good, strong place to lead your team. All right. So going back to the top 3 things that started this quick live. Number 1 is the courage to lead. The second is integrity. Are you going to do the right thing no matter what? And the third is the ability to communicate. And that's not just the ability to talk and articulate your words, but it's the ability to listen to your team to get them to follow you. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. Appreciate you guys, and follow us for more tips on leadership.